For more on the ongoing controversy, we're joined by S. David Fineman. He's a former chairman of the Board of Governors of the U.S. Postal Service. And he recently wrote an op-ed for Barron's entitled bluntly, "Quit Interfering and Save the Postal Service." He joins us now from Philadelphia. David, good to have you with us. I think that for most people, the idea of a controversy involving the Postal Service seems out of the realm of possibility. So at what level is the Post Office and the Postmaster General something that actually is a political institution?
Well, first of all, the United States Postal Service is an essential service for all of America. If we leave aside the election for a second, we deliver, or the Postal Service, I should say, delivers mail 6 days a week to all Americans. That's everybody, and as well as packages and essential goods such as prescription drugs. Without the Postal Service working at full capacity, what you will have is people suffering all over America. And particularly, I would suggest in rural America and in the inner city. Those people rely every day to get their mail and to get their packages and to get them on time. Now that we're in the middle of a pandemic, not only do they rely on getting their mail, but I'd suggest to you that there's some people who look forward every day to that postal person coming to their door.
Absolutely, and the essential work of those people during the pandemic has been crucial. Many of them, putting their own health and safety on the line to make sure that mail and those packages get delivered to all of us. But to get back to I think this essential point here, how common is it to have any degree of political interference in the Postal Service?
And I served on the board under President Clinton. I served on the board under President Bush. I was the chairman under President Bush. I never heard from the President of the United States, and neither did anybody else on the Board of Governors of the United States Postal Service. This is unprecedented. It's beyond my belief that you could have a so-called political appointee appointed to the board, appointed as a Postmaster General, I should say. And I'm baffled at what is going on today. One can only believe that if the Postmaster General is following the instructions of the President, we're talking about voter suppression.
Well, the Post Office has had its share of challenges. Since 2006, the USPS has had to pre-fund its pension obligations for 75 years. Can you talk to our viewers a little bit about the significance of that?
Sure. I was one, when I first got on the board of the Postal Service, understood that they had to change the rate-making process. It made no sense. So they did, and they divided mail into monopoly mail and competitive mail. At the same time, in Congress, there were some challenges involving gas companies that were in California, and it was decided that they should pre-fund pension obligations for 75 years. Myself and the Postmaster General, I was then the chairman, we understood that that was not going to work. And as I said, actually, in the op-ed piece, maybe naively, I believed that Congress would change that. So since 2006, when the new law was signed into law by President Bush, we believed that that was going to be changed. There's been various bills before Congress to have it changed, but it has not been changed. And I would suggest that the Postmaster General, he identifies President Trump as his good friend. I would suggest that he go and speak to President Trump and get him behind, and the chairman of the board is very good friends with Senator McConnell. Get them behind getting rid of what is an onerous burden to the Postal Service.
Well, let's talk about, you mentioned legislation. Even if the U.S. Postal Service gets all the money that it needs from Congress, do you think that it would then be applied to help alleviate some of the problems that we're hearing described in terms of the potential for very long delays or mail-in ballots not being properly received in time? Do you feel confident that Postmaster General DeJoy will actually try and use funds, if he did receive it from Congress, to secure mail-in voting?
As of now, I think we're all a little skeptical. In the middle of the night, they removed mailboxes all over America. And I'm in Philadelphia. I got phone calls from people who were friends, saying, David, why are they removing my mailbox in the middle of the night? That happened all over America. My understanding, at least in the western states, it's supposed to stop. So I don't feel confident right now that we're going to have a full and fair election, but the Postal Service can do it. They can. They have wonderful workers who care deeply. And we talk about protecting those workers. Over 60 postal workers died as a result of this pandemic. Over 3,000 have been stricken with this deadly disease. And one wonders, do we have to keep them in mind as we continue to deliver the mail on time? Lana, I served on the board of the Postal Service during 9/11, and I served during the anthrax scare. We cared about two things. One was protecting the postal workers, and the second was to get mail delivered on time.
Those were some big challenges, certainly. And as you know, we are facing another set of big challenges when it comes to the mechanics of the U.S. Postal Service. So how do you think DeJoy is handling his job? And I have to ask, sir, if you have a political affiliation that might be coloring your opinions on that.
Well, I was appointed by President Clinton, or nominated by President Clinton, and then confirmed by the United States Senate. I remember sitting at my confirmation hearing with Bob Ryder, who was a good friend, who's now deceased, who served as well as chairman of the board during a period of time. Bob was a dedicated Republican, and I was a Democrat. I am a Democrat. There's no doubt about it. But when you went to serve on the board of the Postal Service, you kind of left your political affiliation at the door. You were there to make sure that the mail was delivered on time and that the Postal Service had the necessary economic incentives to deliver the mail on time. We acted in a bipartisan way. We didn't act as Democrats or Republicans, and almost everything we did was by consensus. That's not to say that when we went to dinner, we didn't have lively discussions, but we got along with each other, and it was not political. And that's so different than what we see today.
Well, the election is less than 3 months away at this point. There have been significant doubts that the president has cast on the ability for the U.S. Postal Service to actually deal with the major influx that we're expecting for mail-in ballots. Do you think that it is possible to fix the problems that currently exist in order to have a fair vote?
We have about 80 days left. Let's everybody stop removing mail sorting equipment from large facilities. Let's stop removing mail boxes for where people are used to going to their mailbox to mail their mail-in ballot. Let's stop preventing states from coming up with different manners of collecting mail. Let's do it in a fair manner, and I have no fear that we could have a fair election, as long as no one interferes with that process.
All right. S. David Fineman, thank you for joining us and lending your expertise.
Thank you for having me.